Welcome everybody to the Lions Learning webinar. We once again have an opportunity for you to sit back and absorb some really great knowledge and to participate. And that's what we really want you to do, is to participate. To do that, I'm going to ask you to use the question and answer box or the chat box, or if you really would like to speak to us verbally, then raise your hand. There's a little icon on the bottom of your screen. When you click on that, I'll be aware that you want to speak and I will be able to open up your audio capabilities. You'll still have to unmute yourself, but at least you'll have that opportunity. The question and answer box will be monitored throughout the whole session. So if you put a question in there, if it's something that I can answer, I will do so. If it's a question for Dan or Jamie, then I'll make sure that I get their attention so that they're aware of the question and can answer for you. Please feel free to use the question and answer box and the chat box as much as you like. And as always, these will be recorded and we'll be able to review them on the A12 Lions YouTube channel at a later date. Alrighty, and now I'm going to turn it over to our Global Leadership Chair, Jamie Jones.
Thank you, Past District Governor Ruth. Tonight we have a very special guest, Past District Governor Lion Dan Sibanda from Districts A7, 11, presenting a very important topic, diversity, which is something has pretty much been prevalent maybe the last 5 or 6 years in Lionism. There's been a focus on diversity in our clubs. Presenting tonight is Lion Dan Sibanda, and he's a member of the Cooksville Lions Club in the Greater Toronto area and the multiple District A GMT coordinator. A past district governor for District A7-11, he became a Lion as a charter member in 1989. A strong believer in membership growth, past district Governor Dan has sponsored over 30 people into Lionism in the last 8 years. As the District A7-11 GLT coordinator from 2014 to 2017, his passion was identifying and developing future leaders. During his term as district governor in 2019-20, his membership-driven efforts led to the reactivation of 3 previously canceled clubs. A certified guiding Lion and a Melvin Jones Fellow, Lion Dan is a graduate of the Faculty Development Institute and the Lion Certified Instructor Program. He is a recipient of 2 International President's Leadership Medals and numerous International President's Certificates of Appreciation. He also serves as multiple District A GMA champion. It is my honor to introduce a fellow past district governor during my year and my friend, Lion Dan Sibanda.
Thank you, Lion Jamie. Actually, we were governors the same year with Jamie, and we were in Milan. That's when we became district governors. And we also had an opportunity to meet at the convention, MDA convention that happened last weekend. So it was good to see all those Lions after the 2 years of isolation. I'm going to put up a slide here. I hope it's showing now on the screen. So what
we're still waiting. We're waiting for the PowerPoint to open up. what we're looking at right now is your file folders and
Oh, you don't actually see it?
No, you have to select, when you share, you gotta,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't kicked up yet, so you may have to share your PowerPoint.
we had it up and open during the practice session.
Yes, we did. There's no issue. Let's see now. How about now?
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint screen, but not, there we go. It's perfect now.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm going to be talking about diversity, but I changed it slightly and actually added inclusion as well. So my talk is on diversity and inclusion. These two actually go together hand in hand. If you just look at diversity on its own, you might actually miss the important aspect or the benefits that come out of diversity. And I just want to start by saying, you know, when we look at our clubs, what are some of our challenges, especially with respect to membership? We have challenges recruiting younger members. This could apply to even your own club. We have challenges retaining members. We have challenges with a growing community. The club is in a growing community, and yet club membership is stagnant or even declining. Or we have members who are not active in club fundraising and service activities. These are some of the challenges that we face as Lions, as clubs, as districts. And obviously, there are many, many reasons why we have these problems. But tonight, I just wanted to point out maybe one of the components to that problem. And that probably the issue of diversity and inclusion might actually be part of the solution. I just wanted to start with this quotation that probably some of you have seen it. The significant problems we face cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. This was said by Albert Einstein. And when you think about it, really, there is a lot of meaning to it. And this is part of what we will see when we go through the issue of diversity and inclusion. So in terms of the objective of this presentation, I've just narrowed it down to 3 areas that we'll look at. We'll look at what really are the benefits of diversity. And we'll try and explain the difference between diversity and inclusion so that we all understand that diversity on its own is not actually the solution. And we'll also, if we have time, identify steps to promote inclusion. so that all of us are actually on the same page. Let's start by just defining what diversity is. And the easiest way of understanding it, it is that it is the wide range of differences that exist amongst people. As simple as all that. But usually when you talk to people to understand, or you ask them what is really diversity, what they normally talk about is cultural diversity or ethnicity. And in fact, that is just one part of diversity. So if you look at it and you think it's just culture and ethnicity, you will completely miss the opportunity that is actually created by understanding diversity. So we'll go a bit into it to understand really what is diversity. What are these differences that we're talking about beyond just cultural and ethnic differences? You can look at it by looking at the dimensions in two levels, the primary dimensions and the secondary dimensions. The primary dimensions are those differences that cannot be changed. In other words, it's what it is. There is nothing you can do to change it. And the secondary dimensions are those differences that can be changed. So really, what are we talking about here? Just as an example, the red circle there that you see is the issue of a tall guy and a short guy. There is nothing you can do to change that. On the green circle on your right, you can see the difference. One guy is bald, the other is not, and another one has got beard. We can actually change our hairstyle. We can actually grow a beard. So if those differences exist, they can actually be changed. So in fact, maybe before I get on to that, if Ruth may allow the participants to just participate here. Let's look at examples of primary differences. Can anybody volunteer?
Raise your hand if you want to speak, or you can type your comments into the chat box. And Barb Innes, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Barb.
It's Passage Governor Barb Innes, and I have seen that tall and that short little figures before, and I've actually posed for something like that with a very tall man. So we made our own picture because I'm not very tall. But another thing that you can't possibly change is the color of your skin, where you come from initially, or really, what your body looks like. You can't really change those factors, and people just need to accept you for who you are.
Exactly. Any other?
Anyone else?
Okay.
Claire's mentioned that sexual orientation is another thing that you would consider a primary.
Okay. Oh, that's in the chat box. So what I'll do is I will actually put up what is called the diversity wheel. Some of you may have come across it. And there it is, the blues inner circle. Those are examples of dimensions that you can't change. For instance, your age is what it is. You're young, you're old, or whatever. Sexual orientation, somebody mentioned that. Your ethnicity, I think Lion Bob touched on that. Your race, your gender, your physical abilities, like your height and so on and so on. But if you look at the outer circle, a lot of those can probably be changed. And you are looking at things like your marital status, whether you are, your religious beliefs, your geographic location, your education, and so on and so on. So some of these you are able to change. So it's important to understand when we talk about differences that some of these differences can actually be changed. And yet there are others that there is absolutely nothing that you can do about it. What I wanted us to just talk about here is, given that we're talking about different types of dimensions of diversity and how important diversity is, I wanted at this stage to just say, maybe we speak about what you see or what you think are the benefits of diversity. Anyone who wants to venture, what you think is a good example of or a benefit of diversity?
I can add that. Can I chime in?
Yep, go ahead.
I mean, especially, you know, our communities are becoming more and more diverse every year. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, our clubs are not. So when we're looking to develop a service project, it's important that we have points of view from diverse people in our club. So otherwise, we might overlook situations, be it cultural or gender related or age related issues with that service project. So you get different perspectives, which can fine tune that service project.
Yeah, that's a good one. You get different perspectives because diversity means different points of views. Any other? If not, then I've actually come up with 5 that you can consider as the primary ones. The first one is increase the creativity. The fact that you have different people with different points of views, different perspectives, like it has been mentioned, that means you can actually come up with very creative ideas. And that can only happen if you're different. Like they say that in business, if you are always agreeing, then one of you is irrelevant. So you need somebody else who doesn't necessarily agree with you because they will give you a different perspective. Increase productivity. What happens is that if you are a diverse group, then you have different skill sets that you are bringing in. Like just imagine a club. If everyone in that club is an accountant, and something needs to be done that requires probably a person like Jamie, who is on the technical side. If that club doesn't have that kind of person, then they may be constrained in doing some of the projects that they would want to need. But if you are diverse, then you are likely to get the people who have got the requisite skills in that area to actually do the job. That way, productivity increases. New attitudes. Here you can look at it that when you are in a club meeting and somebody is just coming up with this new idea that you hadn't thought of it yourself, it changes your attitude or the way you look at things. And that can only come because of diversity. More effective processes. When you discuss how you're going to do stuff, somebody else will come up with something that you hadn't thought about. That way you improve the process or how you do something. And that can only come if you're diverse. And out of it comes increased motivation as well. When a group is full of ideas, that just energizes everybody in the group. And you just feel like you want to go. And that increases motivation. So these are some of the major benefits of diversity. I just wanted to touch on some quotable quotes that you might find of interest. This one by Edward Enninful. I can tell you, without diversity, creativity remains stagnant. Or this one, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And that's by Stephen Covey. I think quite a number of you may know him. He's a well-known guru, business guru. So we've just spoken briefly about diversity. And probably we said it in glowing terms, as if anyone who embraces diversity will just reap all those benefits. But the truth is, it just doesn't happen that way. And maybe what we can do now is let's just pause a bit and think about it, that what are some of the negatives that can come out of diversity? If you have a diverse team or a diverse club, what can happen? Any ideas?
Raise your hand if you want to speak, or
Jamie's hand is up.
okay, Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when you were listing all those differences earlier, my thought was, who cares? Differences are only differences if you make it a difference. We're all different, and those primary differences and the secondary differences that are there. You know, when we say diversity, sometimes we look at the negative side of it, and where those differences draw a line between us rather than bring us together. And you know, a lot of those differences just should be overlooked and not really be differences. And it's when they become an issue is where we stop being productive, and it's not being inclusive. I know that's kind of a general roundabout statement, but I think it's a matter of whether that difference is a stumbling block or whether it's a benefit. And the person reviewing those differences is the only one that can make that determination.
Exactly. Yeah.
Claire mentioned in the comments that it can cause conflict.
It can definitely cause conflict. How many times have we seen it in our clubs where different opinions lead to conflict? And even this the demise of a club. Any other? So really, I can just mention a few here, just to save on time. Destructive conflict has been mentioned. That's one of them. Diversity can actually cause that. And there can be poor communication. Because people are not the same, or they don't view things the same way. Communication can become a problem. It can lead to isolation, where you have invited people to join your club, but once they join, then they just feel isolated or left out in many things that are happening in the club. And the next thing, those people will be unhappy members and they will resign, or they stop participating in club activities. It can cause strained relationships because people are always batting their heads with different points of views and so on. And like Jamie mentioned, it can cause lower productivity because of all this stuff going on. And of course, the end result is that there will be poor morale in the club. So these, we can look at the benefits, but there are also the negatives that cannot be overlooked. So what this tells us is that when you think of diversity and reaping those benefits of diversity, don't just look at that diversity is just bringing in people who are different from you, whether by whatever dimension that we spoke about there. Don't think just bringing those people in will give you the results. The big answer is no. And that's why we are going to look at this other part of it, which is inclusion. Diversity and inclusion should go hand in hand if you want to reap those benefits we spoke about. And when we talk of inclusion, we can just define it in simple terms: proactive behaviors that make each person feel welcome and a part of an organization. An inclusive environment is one in which members feel respected and connected to one another. There you are, that illustration. It shows you on the left, that orange guy is not connected at all. He's not part of the circle. If you look on the right, you open up the circle and welcome the person who has been brought in, who is different from others. He should be part of that circle. And that's when you start reaping the benefits of diversity. Quotable quotes. This one is by Bill Crawford. Diversity, or the state of being different, isn't the same as inclusion. One is the description of what it is. Diversity is just a description. That's what he's saying. While the other describes a style of interaction essential to effective teams and organizations. So diversity and inclusion are different. Diversity is the mix. Inclusion is making the mix work. I'm going to just quickly go through just for the sake of time. I would have wanted us to go through this talking about what are inclusive environments here that we're really talking about. But for lack of time, I'll just summarize them. When you talk about an inclusive environment, in other words, that environment that will cause diversity to deliver the rewards that we're all looking for, is that it should be an environment where we respect learning and communication styles. That is very important, because if we do not accept learning, then we will not get the benefits of diversity. So the different ways that people learn and communicate are respected in that environment. And also that the organization or the club welcomes change. And I think that's where most we struggle with this as clubs, Lions clubs, where we are not welcoming change. I remember in my own club where there was even a fight on how people should be dressed and so on and so on. And that became a bigger issue than actually welcoming people as they are into the club. So it's important that progress and change are seen as positive. It's easier said than done, but it's something that we should all strive for. We should also encourage open communication. In other words, let's just talk about it. Let's have open and honest discussions between members without any fear or inhibition. And we must demonstrate flexibility. In other words, bend backwards a bit. Don't be too rigid in how you do your stuff. If you are too rigid, that means you are saying it has to be done your way only. You are not accommodating anyone else. You can imagine if you get new members and they're coming up with ideas of how to run a bingo or one of your projects, and you just say, no, we've always done it this way and that's it. Obviously, those people will be put off, and they probably may not even participate in your club project, and you will lose a member. And of course, we have to recognize cultural differences. Here, what I'm talking about is, for instance, the way we communicate. You might find that you are English speaking, I'm English speaking, but somebody who is not even English speaking, who speaks another language, when he comes in, the way he expresses himself people might find it, how do I put it? Maybe, laughable or something like that. And what you don't recognize is that you're actually putting off that person by not recognizing cultural differences. That's something that looks strange to me. To somebody else, it might be normal. So you have to have that level of understanding, level of tolerance, that somebody else sees the world in a different way than me, or they do their stuff different from the way I do it. And out of that, I'm not going to go into this part here, is how you can actually, the mechanics of how you can now execute inclusion within your club, within your organization, and so on. There are actually 7 steps that you can follow. That include everybody uniting. In other words, it shouldn't be just one person within the organization that, like for instance, the president who is promoting diversity. Everybody else hasn't bought in. It's not going to work. It has to be everyone who has bought in. And then you have to examine some of the things that you do in the club, like the way you meet, the way you conduct your meetings. I can give an example here that if you're going to recruit younger members and you just continue doing your meetings the way that we're doing them in the 70s, I'm sorry, those youngsters are actually going to leave your club. You can count on that. They may not be interested in staying through these long meetings. There are some things that can, for instance, be done even before the meeting online or whatever, so you have to be open to new ways of doing things. And taking us to the next, yeah, I see there is a hand up, Barb.
Go ahead, Barb.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, great. What I find, whether we're talking about diversity or we're not, I think people are more open to other suggestions if you know a little bit more about that person. So what I find is very helpful, regardless of who is in the club and where they come from or what they stand for, is if you get an opportunity to learn a little bit more about them, a little bit about their background, their family, what their interests are. Sometimes that can help you support a decision or a suggestion that they might bring forth, because you have a better idea of where they're coming from. Just a thought.
Yes, that's a very good point. And that actually falls into one of these steps that we're going through. So you're quite right, Lion Bob. And knowing the reason, for instance, why you are doing it. I mean, there should be a common understanding within the club that we want to promote diversity, and everybody in the club understands it. And they've actually bought in. You need the buy-in from the other members. Otherwise, you might be the 1 or 2 people who are actually bringing in new members who are different from you, and they are not being accommodated well in the club. And obviously, you need to come up with an action plan, how you're going to do it. And number 3 there, here I'm not going through them in much detail, I'm just touching on them. Number 3, the issue of expressing that desire. In other words, like for instance, if you are the club president, you should actually talk about it. Even the communication that you send out, even your social media, touch on things like diversity, that we promote diversity in our club, we accept people of all walks of life. And this reminds me, when I was district governor, I visited one club in A711. And unbeknown to me, they only accepted men in that club. And I was telling them, about how when our club was really membership in our own club, Mississauga Cook's Lions was low, how we actually brought in more members by actually asking our spouses to be members. So I told them that, and so on and so on. Then after the meeting, one of the members came over to see me, and he said, no, Governor, here we don't even accept women as members. And we're talking about 2019, 2020. So you can imagine that has that club actually accepted diversity? It's actually institutionalized in their own club. So unless they take out those chains that they've put on themselves, there is no way that diversity is going to work in that club, kind of club. I'll move on to just mentioning what we have covered. We've looked at the benefits of diversity. And also, in doing so, we touched on the limitations that if you just think of diversity as just bringing people who are different from you, that's not good enough. There has to be inclusion. And when we talk about inclusion, it means you actually take steps, change things within your club or organization to actually accommodate or facilitate inclusion. And which leads us to the last step there, identify steps to promote inclusion. I didn't go into much detail on that one just to save on time. So with that, I will conclude with a few quotable quotations. The first one says, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice we make every day. That's very important. As leaders, we have to put out the messages that we embrace and not just tolerate diversity. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance.
Well said. Well said.
Very well said.
And finally, in order to appreciate and respect diversity, we must first recognize and embrace humanity. Thank you very much.
Dan, I know from my personal experience that trying to bring young members in was difficult for a while, because when the club brought them in, they didn't allow them to really, try any of their projects that they wanted, or to do any of the things that they thought were really good things to do for the community. And it took a coffee meeting with a few of the leaders to say, if we keep saying, oh no, we've done that and it didn't work or whatever, that these young people aren't going to stick around. So we finally bit our tongues and went, let them run the meeting, or let them run that committee, or let them run that project or that service, and support them instead, and not really help turn the club around.
Oh, fantastic. Yes.
I have something, actually, when you were talking about this, Dan, it just occurred to me, about 50 years ago, we used to go camping up near Buckhorn Lake, and on the east side, there's an Indian reserve called Curve Lake, and we used to go shopping there, buy all kinds of knickknacks and sweaters and moccasins and everything else. It was an awesome. I don't know if it's still there or not, but I remember buying a little leather plaque, if you will, that had a leather strap, and I had it hung on my wall. And it just came to me now. The saying on it was, "Great Spirit, grant that I might not criticize my neighbor unless I have walked a mile in his moccasins." And that's kind of what diversity is. I mean, we're all different, and it's the acceptance of that and the choice to accept that and not judge. Listening, as far as, we had that exercise illustrated by Tom Gordon and Joanne McQuiggan at the MDA convention, how important listening is. And that's a starting point of inclusion. Somebody's new to your club, just, rather than shutting them off because they're different, listening to them, truly listening to them and what they have to say. And it starts right there. One last comment. when I heard diversity, I automatically thought about the negative, about the exclusion, if you will. But I never thought it so much how powerful the benefit could be that you illustrated tonight, Dan, of inclusion, because we all become better because of it. And thank you for pointing that out tonight.
Thank you.
And Claire, go ahead and unmute yourself. Claire, you're still, oh, there you go. Go ahead, Claire. Claire, you're unmuted now. Go ahead and talk. I guess something's wrong with on her end. Claire just passed on a message. Thanks, Dan. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
We talked about this in our last presentation that Ruth gave on retention, which is all kind of part of this. This is retention of members when, you know, making them feel included in our club. And how important, and Barb talked about it too, bios, simple bios. Every once in a while, have a member of your club, let them know in advance, and just spend 5 or 10 minutes and just tell us about themselves. We only know Lions basically for how we interact with them for Lions, but sometimes we're members with people for years and we don't even know what the other person does for a living. You know, so it's important to know a little bit about the other person, and sometimes an easy way is to invite them to do a bio. Claire's back.
Claire sent her message now. She said, sorry. What she wanted to say is that inclusion is the work we have to do to make diversity work.
Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Yes. So every time diversity, in fact, when you look at us as Lions actually are one of the most diverse organizations that I have come across. If you look at the clubs, if you look at everything, especially where I am in the GTA. But many times I've seen it happen where clubs are actually picking up new members, and the first people to actually leave are those new members that have come in. And that means probably they didn't feel that they were fully appreciated or, you know, within the club. Unfortunately, to us, it might look, you know, great to just being a Lion and you're motivated, you do what you have been doing for the last 10 years. It doesn't take much to convince Jamie to do something because he's a committed Lion. But for this new Lion, you have to walk with them and actually make sure they understand, you know, the benefits of what they are doing, understand their ideas, what they want to do. Just like you were saying, Lion Ruth, that, you know, if they have ideas about projects, ask them to give you the ideas and also involve them in running those projects. They can even lead those projects. We have in our club recruited 2 doctors. And I just thought to myself, these doctors are busy people. And how are we going to keep these people interested and staying in our club rather than just giving, you know, apologies for meetings because they are working, you know, different shifts at hospitals and so on and so on. And I actually thought to myself and came up with an idea that, okay, these are health professionals. Maybe what we can do something as a club, something that has to do with health, and they can participate as health professionals. And I'm glad to say we actually ran a series called Healthy Lifestyle series. And they are in that committee. And you must see how excited they are in actually getting presenters who can come and participate in those sessions that we have. And I know that has actually hooked them on, and it's something that they will be working on for years to come. So there's no reason for them now to probably think of the living lions.
You know, I guess when you talk about diversity is also in part of it is the different vocations we have, the different interests we have. And when you talked about that, Dan, about using the skill set of people in your club, I remember Daniel Elkins from Belfont Lions Club down in Delaware. He's quite renowned for 130 plus members that he sponsored. But I know he's been on our webinars before, and he's talked about his own club. And they started community outreach, and it started out with a member of their club that was very keen on chess. So they started on a Tuesday night, and they started a chess club, and it attracted youth, and it brought more people to the community center. And some of those kids' parents joined their Lions Club. And then not long after, they attracted a member that was very keen in art. So what did they do? They started an art class in the youth club. And so they used the skill set of the new members they had coming into their club, and they built on that. So there's another form of diversity that became a benefit to that club. And to the point where they had 6 of the 7 days of the week, they had youth outreach, fulfilled from the skill set and the interests of the members of that club. And, that's a model situation, but we can all learn from that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments anyone would like to share?
Randy's been awful quiet tonight. You must be sitting out in the patio having a beer.
I think Randy might have had too many beers or whatever. He's not talking tonight. Oh, Barb says, yeah, Randy is drinking. And Michael thanks you, Dan. He says, job well done.
Thank you.
And I thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on you tonight and sharing this important message about diversity and inclusion. I'm so glad you included that, because again, I didn't recognize how important those two come hand in hand. Like you can't have one without the other, really. And it's diversity, inclusion and exclusion is a choice. And we obviously, as Lions, we want to lean towards the inclusion, not the exclusion. So this message is a very important one. We've recorded this for the benefit of other members. And I really thank you, PDG Dan, for sharing this message with us here tonight.
My pleasure.
And hopefully those that did attend tonight, you will encourage your members to log into the A12 Lions YouTube to have a look at it themselves. Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it. Everyone's sending you thank yous. That's nice.